It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set.
Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands, around the world on the iHeartRadio app and broadcasting on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. ClemsonSportsTalk.com, your website. 7:30 tomorrow night, Death Valley, the Tigers and the Boston College Eagles. And we're flipping it for you today. Clemson Tom, hour 1. Tommy Bowden, hour 2. So that means one thing. Out of the gates on a Friday, the fans' perspective with Clemson Tom. Tom, what's going on, big guy?
Not much, buddy. Happy Friday.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, excited to have you back on. Obviously, a little new time slot. We're going to probably be bumping you up to 4 o'clock for a little while, but you can handle that. I mean, you're a man of many skill sets, and that includes in radio at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock.
I can do it whenever you want to do it because regardless, Friday around that time, I'm probably on the golf course or I'm heading to get a margarita. I drink margaritas on Friday.
Look, dude, my social media feed last night was covered with people at the Rolling Stones concert. And, you know, I know you and the wife, you guys like to travel. You like to do a little of this, a little of that. Tom, yep. What's the best concert you've been to? I mean, listen, Clemson's 2-2, Tom. We're going to stay off of that as much as possible. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh, man, probably the national championship game in Arizona when we took Alabama to the wire, but they ended up beating us. Eric Church was there, and I was literally front row. Eric Church was my favorite, and he pointed at the championship belt and gave me a thumbs up, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Eric Church is pointing at me. So that's probably the best.
Yeah. Well, does that mean? I mean, do y'all go to a lot of concerts, or is that just not your thing?
No, we used to. I mean, pre-COVID, BC, before COVID. Caitlin went to the Taylor Swift concert. We were supposed to go to Taylor Swift in Boston before COVID. She loved the Taylor Swift. Eric Church was a fun one for me. I always wanted to go to, like when Guns N' Roses did their late tour, Elton John's coming to town here in Orlando, so we're looking to go see him. But honestly, being close to Disney, they always do like the cover bands for all these like 80s or 90s, rock bands. We did a Prince cover that not too long ago that was awesome. Fleetwood Mac covered. They're called like Fleetwood or something like that, but it's a traveling band that covers just Fleetwood.
I saw Fleetwood Mac in concert.
So I would love to see Fleetwood Mac in concert, but those like these cover bands that travel around like the Disney and Universal and under Hard Rock, like they're legit good. So honestly, it's like seeing the real guys. So we go to those concerts quite often. Those are always fun. We just saw Elton John, Billy Idol. It was Billy Idol. Billy Joel.
Billy Joel. Yeah, they did like a duo, almost like a dueling. It's like a crocodile rock.
Kind of like that. And it was awesome.
Now, was it a knockoff Billy Joel and Elton John, or these were the legit Billy Joel and Elton John?
No, it's the knockoffs. It's like impersonators. They're
Billy John and Elton Joel. I got you. You saw like Billy John and Elton Joel in concert.
Something like that. After that night, I don't know who they were, but no, it's just. I mean, they're so good. The impersonators are great. Like they travel under either Disney or under Hard Rock because Universal also has the Hard Rock bands that come and go, and those are they're just so much fun. And the tickets are like $20. So you're seeing the top line impersonator that hits the notes like you're really there. Like when we went to go see Prince, it was phenomenal.
Learn Spanish
And I'm not a
with
big Prince
Real
fan,
Spanish
so Caitlin
TV.
is, and I was like, how was it compared? She was like, you could tell it wasn't
Click
him,
on
but
words in the
he was
subtitle.
doing some of the notes like perfectly. So I was like, all right, I'll go
Okay,
with you.
so see, you've once again gotten me. You said when we saw Prince, but you meant Prince knockoff. So like when you
Yeah, like
saw
Prince
the
song,
Pauper, something like
Yeah. But they're like the traveling shows like called Purple Rain or something like that. So they always do like something like of the name of a song or something like that. But it's an impersonator, but they're really, really good. I mean, it's like Vegas quality shows when you go. It's awesome.
So who would be the impersonator of Clemson Tom? Like, is there a faux Clemson Tom out there?
Probably Vince Vaughn. I would say Vince Vaughn would be a good impersonator of me.
I'll take that. I'll let that go.
Yeah.
So, Tom, it looks like
Well,
somebody's
what's the-
impersonating the Clemson Tigers on the football field this year. They are 2-2.
I
Speaking,
think we got poisoned or something. I don't, man. I do not know what the heck is going on. Where did DJ go? The DJ from the Notre Dame game? Where's that kid?
I had a theory that came to light. I guess it was on yesterday's program. I believe it was Tim Murray that I was talking to, and I kind of was asking a little bit about that same kind of deal. And Tim said, maybe the thing that people have failed to recognize is it possible that opener against Georgia, and as tough as the Bulldogs were, that it just sort of rattled DJ a little bit, and he hadn't quite recovered yet. I mean, is that a feasible belief at this point? I mean, I would say it's possible, right? I mean,
because that's not a champion mentality. That's not like if you get punched in the mouth, let's say you're a top line like Mike Tyson. If you got knocked down, you're gonna get up where you're like, oh, you're not gonna fight anymore. You're not gonna go out there and run the plays. I mean, you got receivers running the wrong plays. You got guys jumping off sides. I mean, it's not like, oh, he's rattled. That's not a champion anyways. At this level, you can't get rattled like that. You got to bounce back. But if getting blitzed and all this other stuff rattled him, then he's not a quarterback, because then he's not going to make it, bottom line. But, I mean, kind of agree with it, because I remember one sack he had, he looked at the defensive tackle or defensive end, whoever got him.
Yeah.
And he just froze, and he just, like, ducked down, like he was picking something off the ground, like the duck. And he just took the sack, but he, like, froze. It was like a deer in headlights. So if he's getting rattled, then he's not the guy. I'm sorry. I hope he does great. I like him. But if you're getting rattled off of one game, you're not a quarterback in Division I football.
Do you think we put too much emphasis on him too early?
No, I think he put emphasis on himself. I think the hype put emphasis on him. I mean, he was the number one rated quarterback in the country coming out of high school. He was highly recruited, highly touted. He had accolades coming from like middle school. I mean, I don't think we put any pressure on him. That's when you're coming out of high school rated the number one quarterback in America, the pressure's there. I don't care if he went to Montana State Baptist Christian Community College and played quarterback. That pressure was going to be there. I mean, you have to own it. And if he can't live up to the hype is you honestly you can never really live up to hype, because even when you reach the pinnacle, you're like, oh, well, you didn't do this. Well, you didn't do that. Oh, Trevor Lawrence, yeah, he won a national championship, but he never won the Heisman. Oh, he went back and played for a national championship, but he didn't win it twice. So no matter what, you can never really live up to the hype. But he's not even opening up the door to have the conversation to the hype right now.
Clemson Tom is on Twitter at Clemson Tom. Go follow him over there right now. You're the voice of the fans on this program, Tom. A lot of people are all up in Tony Elliott's grill about the offensive coordinating. I've certainly had some comments on it, but I will ask you this from the fan perspective. I mean, hasn't this team earned the right to have a 2-2 season without everybody having to be fired?
Yeah, I'm not all about we got to fire somebody, we got to do this and that. Because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going on at practice. It's not Tony Elliott's fault that they're running the wrong routes. Those guys have a responsibility on it themselves. I didn't want to say anything, but now that we're talking about it, but I cannot remember the wide receiver in overtime against NC State. In my opinion, he gave up on the ball on the last play.
No, that was Justin Ross.
Justin Ross. There you go. I could not think of his name. You go back and you look at that replay. It looked like he gave up. It looked like he saw the ball. It looked catchable. And it looked like he was just like, nah, not today, man. Like he was mad about something. And if that's the case, then we got bigger problems than Tony Elliott not calling, creative plays, or we got more problems than having a 2-hour lightning delay and we don't make adjustments on the offense and we come out running a bubble screen. I mean, the defense made adjustments, but I mean, I think it goes deeper than Tony Elliott. I think Tony's a great offensive coordinator. I mean, maybe not great, maybe he's really good, but I think there's more to it than what we're seeing. When you've got guys on the field not producing, that's not Tony's fault. Think about it, if you're Tony Elliott and you're the offensive coordinator and you've got guys running the wrong routes, you got an offensive line that's not giving your quarterback 3 seconds to throw the ball. There's only so much you can do. You've got to establish a rhythm. That's why we do the bubble screens. That's why Taj had to do a bubble screen. Taj had to get into a rhythm. So is it all on Tony Elliott's shoulders? Sure, he's the coach. But at the end of the day, he's not the one that's not blocking. He's not the one that's running the wrong routes. He's got to teach them to do that. But at the end of the day, if they're not willing to learn or if they can't learn, then we got to find somebody that can. It's the same thing in the corporate world. If you hire somebody to do a job and you train them and you train them and you train them and they can't pick it up, it's not for them. You're not doing them any favors by keeping them around. You're not doing your team any favors by keeping them around. You've got to find somebody that's going to get in there, do the job, do it well. No one's going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes, but you got to be able to do the job. And right now, the entire offense isn't doing the job.
I wonder, too, for those people who are so critical right now about this offense. And again, it has not been pretty. I mean, I'm not here to say, oh, man, this has been great. It hasn't.
That's been ugly. No, it's been ugly.
But if you think back to 2014, Deshaun Watson goes out. Cole Stout comes into the bowl game. He has to start the bowl game because Deshaun played that South Carolina game.
Yep.
Chad Morris leaves. Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott take over as the offensive coordinator. And Clemson lights up the scoreboard with Cole Stout. If I think about the rest of the season with Cole Stout, the offense looked about like this offense is looking. So it's hard for me to just say that it can possibly be Tony Elliott when he was the guy that made Cole Stout look like $1 million in a 40-6 win over Oklahoma.
But what you're not taking into account, Cole Stout that entire year was injured. That was not 100% Cole Stout. He was injured the entire year. Injured to the point where you can even wonder, should he have been on the field? And then during the Oklahoma game, that's when he was better. So you got to see about an 80% Cole Stout in that game. Now, I'm not saying that, he would have brought us and we could have gone on to a better bowl game or anything like that. But you can't put all that on what happened because he was injured to the point where it was bad. And he made some bad throws. And I remember some, I'm like looking at him like, daggum, like, what do you?
The Georgia Tech game, the pick sixes. Ooh.
Yeah. He had an interception against the Gamecocks where he threw it straight to the linebacker to the point I'm like, did you not see the guy standing 10 feet in front of you? I mean, so he had a lot of mistakes, but at the same time, he wasn't 100% healthy. I'm not going to make any excuses for him. But, once again, is what I'm trying to tell you. They called the plays. He executed them. We currently are having plays called, and we're not executing. You can't put that 100% on the coaching staff. The players have to go out there and execute, bottom line.
All right, Tom. So I saw a post yesterday afternoon on social media. Maybe it was yesterday evening. Clemson used to have a red oak tree in the corner of the east side of the stadium, and that oak tree was taken down. And somebody crafted this thing, and they are selling this oak tree, a table, an executive table, with a bid of $165,000 as the minimum or whatever. Tom, first off, I get it. Somebody will buy it. But who in their right mind would buy a table for $165,000?
One of them old boys that's going to be like, that's, come on in here, Mr. Calhoun. Look at this. Look at this table. Isn't it beautiful? It came from a red oak that was sitting right outside Death Valley up there in Clemson. And now we sit here. We don't eat at it much except for Thanksgiving and social gatherings. It's just beautiful. That's what it is. It's who's the money going to?
To the guy that made it, Curtis Martin.
Somebody's gonna buy it. You know, it's gonna be somebody from like Mount Pleasant or somewhere out there on the beach next to Charleston in one of them fancy neighborhoods. And that's just what it's gonna be. Or maybe an old player buys it. But if that table sells for $150,000, Swanee, you and I need to figure out how to start making some tables, bro. I'm in the wrong business.
Listen, I'll be cutting trees down on campus next week.
I'm telling you, good Lord, I'll cut down a tree in my neighborhood and say it came from Clemson, man. Ain't nobody gonna know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, shoot.
I mean, I was looking. Look, they got this thing. It's got some inlaid Clemson tiger paws and got some history and tradition of the red oak and this, that, and the other. And you know, maybe if you own a huge company and you just need a big write-off, it makes sense. But $165,000 for a table?
I bet the school ends up buying it. And they put it somewhere, and that's just what it is. Or I bet the school ends up buying it. Or a former player or something like that. Somebody with a lot more money than you and I. Because that's just dumb. If I'm spending $150,000, it's not going to be on a table.
I can barely spend that on the house.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'll buy it on the house if it comes with a table. If it's already furnished, then yeah. But, I just a table? Get out of here. Caleb,
Tom, who wins in a fight?
A Lamborghini.
Who wins in a fight between James Skalski and Ben Boulware?
Oh, God. Oh, man, that's like Godzilla versus like King Kong. Man, I got to go with Ben, honestly. Man, Ben just had been.
Is this the toughest question you've ever been asked on a radio show?
I think so, dude. See, Skalski was more, or is, like.
I don't know. I did ask you who do you start, Trevor or Deshaun, one time, and your phone started blowing up.
Phone, man. Yeah, remember my phone.
That's one of the greatest moments in this program's history, by the way.
I know. That's a tough one. See, Skalski is more like your hard nose. He's like a Triple H. He's like a Triple H wrestler. Doesn't have a lot of swag. He's just going to go out there and he's going to give it to you 100%. Now you got Ben's coming out there. Okay. He trash talks. He's getting all excited. He's more of a Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of a wrestler with a little bit of The Rock, because Ben can trash talk, and the Rock on the mic is just pure, just gold. So you're looking at a Triple H versus like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because Ben's got a little bit of that country toughness in him, and you know he's just hard nosed. And then just look what Ben did against like Louisville when he was in there. I mean, he's like banging his head. He's trash talking Lamar. He's knocking dudes out with Alabama, and he's up in their grills. I mean, that's what Ben was just. I love Ben and I love Skalski, man. If those two guys fought, I'd jump in the middle, and I'd probably end up getting killed. I'd be like, you guys need to stop. Because one punch is going to get thrown and it's going to be like an atom bomb going off. Nobody wants to witness this. But, man, you want to talk, I'd shoot. That'd be one heck of a fight, though.
Tom, less than a minute. Does Clemson win this weekend against the undefeated Boston College team?
I saw that we were favored.
By more points than we've scored in regulation in any game against a Power 5 team.
I saw that. And I was like, what in the world is going on? Just to be honest with you, man, no, I don't see us beating Boston College. I know it's a 7:30 game in Death Valley. I'll put it to you this way: the team that played last week, if the team that shows up Saturday is the same team that showed up the following weeks, it's going to be a no. We're not going to win. Now, if something happened between Saturday and Saturday, we don't look like we know what's going on offense. The defense who's anchoring it down. You're out two of your best guys. So, in all honesty, it hurts to say this, but Boston College is going to take us. And I've already messaged a friend of mine that works at Boston. She's some sports talk writer up in Boston. She used to work for the ACC network. Her name's Courtney Cox. You'll love her. You need to have her on the show, actually. I told her, I was like, take it easy on this weekend. And she was like, I can't believe you guys are favored. I was like, me either. So it's going to be rough, man. I hate to say it, but I hope they prove me wrong. But if the same team plays 7:30 Saturday night is the same team that showed the past few weeks, it's going to be a long season.
We hit a break. We'll come back with more right after this. Stay with us. Again, it is a Friday afternoon on the show that shakes the Southland. Appreciate Clemson. Tommy Bowden coming up in hour number 2 of the program. So I was trying to look up during the break. I said what? Now I can't remember. Billy John and Elton Joel. But seriously, the Billy Joel and Elton John cover band, I guess is what you would call that. It's kind of surprising to me that Tom goes to those as much. But I guess if you live in Orlando and you got a chance to go see some of that stuff and not have to pay the full boat, but still enjoy the ambiance, why not? Why not? I mean, I don't go to concerts. I did see a lot of people. Mark Packer was going to that Rolling Stone concert last night. Multiple people on my Facebook page. One of my Fortnite buddies. You know what's crazy though? Honest to goodness, and this is where you guys are really going to disconnect from me. I could not name a single Rolling Stone song. I couldn't tell you one. Now listen, if I look them up right now, I'll know the songs and I can probably sing them. But if you said to me, Swanee, tell me one song written by the Rolling Stones, I got nothing for you. Nothing. I've been to see some great concerts. I mentioned them with Tom. I went to see Fleetwood Mac. In the 90s, I went to see not John Lennon. John Lennon was dead. God, why can't I think of his name? The Beatle. Well, I can see his face. Paul McCartney. Somebody screaming at the radio. It's Paul McCartney, Swanee. Yeah, Paul McCartney. I've been to see Jimmy Buffett. I mean, my list of concerts is small, but some really good and talented individuals. But I was never like a rock and roll guy, and I definitely couldn't tell you a song that the Rolling Stones sing. Is that sad? Like if I crossed over into some realm of unbelievable, you work on the radio and you can't even name one song by the Rolling Stones. I can't. Now, this will be the interesting dynamic. If I look up the top songs by the Rolling Stones, the only thing I know is I got the Moves Like Jagger, but that's not even a Mick Jagger song. I have no idea who sings that. Ooh, moves like Jagger. Yeah, that one. All right. Okay. Here we go. Top Rolling Stone, the 10 greatest Rolling Stone songs of all time. Let's see what I got here. Angie. I don't know that one. Do not know. I mean, I might know it if I hear it, but by the title, I don't know it. Tumbling Dice. Couldn't tell you. You can't always get what you want. Of course I know that one. No, you can't always get what you want. But I probably know that because it was remade by somebody, right? Did Guns N' Roses redo that one? Can't You Hear Me Knocking? Nope. Jumpin' Jack Flash. Ooh, Wild Horses? I mean, I'm assuming this is the Wild Horses I know. And wild horses come and drag me away. I don't know. I don't know if that's it or not, but that's the one I know. Okay, I can't get no satisfaction. That's number 4 on the list. I got that one. I can't get no. I had no idea the Rolling Stones sung that song. Paint It Black? No clue. Sympathy for the Devil? Couldn't tell you. Gimme Shelter, the number 1 song of all time by the Rolling Stones. I can't even hum a tune. I can't even tell you a tune. Now listen, if you find that unbelievable, if you just find it unfathomable that I could not know these songs by the Rolling Stones, here's what you do. Go over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. You got to help me out. Like, the fact that I don't know that means you need to subscribe so that you can help get me through the tough times when people ask me quizzical questions about the Rolling Stones, because I don't know the answer. I mean, as a matter of fact, Who's another great like rock and roll, but Kiss. Kiss. I can't tell you a Kiss song. Not one. And they're like they got to be like one of the great bands of all time, right? The best songs by Kiss, the most popular songs by Kiss. Like, what did I know on that list a few minutes ago? 2 by the name. I mean, I might know them by the sound, but by the name, no way. Here's the top 10 Kiss songs of all time. For everybody that was up at the concert last night seeing the Rolling Stones, Swanee can't hardly tell you a single song there. Shock Me, no clue. Love Gun, can't hum it. God of Thunder, Beth, nope. Do You Love Me? Well, now, unless this is a remake of the Beatles, Do You Love? Like, if it's that one, then yeah, I know that one. If it's not that one, I have no idea. Strutter, nope. Cold Gin, nothing. Rock and Roll All Night. Now, that one I know. That's the I wanna rock and roll all night. Now, I know that one. That's number 3 on their list all time. Deuce is number 2. And Detroit Rock City. I feel like I know that one. I'm sure I can't play it on the air. That's probably some sort of rule violation. So let me see if I can hear this Detroit Rock City before we get a break. How's this one go? Give me a little of that in my ear. Oh, God, that's awful. Oh, these guys look insane. No, I can't even listen to that. They look like they look like the Mulkey brothers decided that they were going to try to imitate the Road Warriors. That's what that looks like. It looks like the Mulkeys put on face paint. These guys are way too scrawny to be wearing the outfits they're wearing with the face paint that they're wearing. So what I know, 4 of the top 20 songs from from Kiss and from the Rolling Stones. I mean, what does that say about my taste of music? I mean, I know more songs by Johnny Cash and George Jones, to be honest with you. Now I know the George Jones because my dad was always playing that in the car. Dude, I could probably run through George Jones's greatest hits from top to bottom. But Kiss and the Rolling Stones, your boy Swanee, you might love me, but I got nothing for you. All right, we're off of concerts. We're on the football when we get back here on the show that shakes the Southland as we roll along on a Friday afternoon. We'll preview some of the games forthcoming this weekend. Stay with us. Back at it on a Friday afternoon. Don't forget, coming up, former Clemson Tiger head coach Tommy Bowden going to be a part of the program. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Be a part of the show. Hang out with us. Have a good time. Do your thing. Don't forget you can subscribe as well. Just $63.17 for 1 year coverage. That's right, $63.17 Gamecock Nation. See how many of those I can squeeze in today. Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell today received a new deal, according to Clemson University. Brad Brownell agreed to a contract extension that runs through 2025 and 2026. The terms of the contract were approved by the University Board of Trustees Compensation Committee. Head women's basketball coach Ed Radwanski also agreed to a new deal that will keep him at Clemson at least through 2025. Brad Brownell's been in Tiger Town for 11 seasons and is the winningest coach in Clemson history with 201 career victories, stands at 368 career victories in his entire tenure coaching, not just at Clemson, but at other venues before arriving in Tiger Town. Twice under Brad Brownell, the Clemson Tigers have posted a top 5 home winning percentage in a season, including an 11-1 year. Incredibly, an 11-1 year in Littlejohn last year in the weird circumstances surrounding college basketball 1 year ago. And Clemson has made 3 trips to the NCAA tournament. I will say that I think the majority of us who have watched this program, who have been around this program, have not been excited about some of the things that have taken place under Brad Brownell's watch, just simply because how long is long. And listen, I know I'm critical of the microwave mentality of society that exists when it comes down to coaches and sports. But, man, it is hard to watch this Clemson Tiger basketball team through the years and not just say, could it be better? Could there be a better name out there? Now, look, I buy into continuity. And that is the one reason I will stand by this, because I've also thrown out there to you from time and time again, like, who would you go get? Like, that's the double-edged sword here that you deal with Clemson. It's one, you've got a guy that's committed. You've got a guy that's had some success. And then two, not a lot of people can answer, who would you go get? And so, like, when we talk to, say, Terrence Oglesby, former Clemson Tiger basketball player, Oglesby, of course, played for Oliver Purnell during his time at Clemson, but he was on Brad Brownell's coaching staff. And when I talked to T.O. about it, I'm like, how great of a coach is he? He said, man, he is great. And in this league where you've got the job vacancies now at, well, not technically a vacancy, but obviously with Coach Roy Williams retiring a year ago, and then you've got Coach K heading into his final season, maybe the league is a little bit vulnerable for a team like Clemson with big names like that out at major power programs like Duke in North Carolina. But again, for head coach Brad Brownell, I know that the seat is always going to be warm simply because they've lost players into the transfer portal. And also it just has been a program that's sort of been built in large part at times when it's most successful by the transfer portal. And it's a double frustration for so many people because you get some guys in and then you lose them. And then on the flip side of things, you're constantly having a changeover of trying to bring guys in to straighten out your program. During Brad Brownell's tenure at Clemson, the Tiger basketball program has maintained a high-quality athletic progress rate, including a program record multi-year score of 975, which includes 2015 through the end of 2019. Again, when you think about Clemson hoops, I know that people want to see better, but I've always said, look, if you want to be frustrated about Clemson basketball as a Clemson Tiger basketball fan, best just look in the mirror. I mean, best just look in the mirror, because the reality is so much of the success or, quote, lack thereof that Clemson's had in basketball, honest to goodness, comes down to support. I mean, Clemson Tiger fans would much rather support a great baseball program than a great basketball program. And in the midst of this incredible football run, it is my opinion that we've missed an opportunity. We've missed an opportunity to maybe propel this basketball program forward. Now, I don't think Clemson's run on the gridiron is going to flounder and fall off like some Paul Feinbaum. But I do believe that there has been ample opportunity for this basketball program to reap the benefits of what the football program brings to the table. And yeah, I know look, the recruitment of Zion Williamson is well documented, and certainly with the scandal that has surrounded college basketball for many years now, one of the things that I think we can all say for certain is that if everything was on the up and up, and if Zion Williamson had desired to be on the up and up, he probably ends up playing at Clemson, right? And I think in hindsight, honestly, I don't know that he would ever admit this in an open forum or behind an open mic, but don't you think that Zion Williamson will eventually recognize what he missed out on by not being the biggest name in the history of Clemson basketball? And again, there was all the that went along with his recruiting, right? And I'm thankful that Clemson and Brad Brownell weren't diving into the weeds of that recruitment just to try to convince this young man to come in to the program. But all that being said, and all that out on the table, all of that without it, if it didn't exist, if recruiting was just, hey, we want you to come be a part of our program, we want you to come and help change the legacy of our program, maybe he does end up at Clemson. And maybe he does help rewrite some of the record books in Tiger Town and become one of the big names in the history of the sport, and possibly even change the trajectory for how people feel about Brad Brownell today, having a guy that ended up being the number one overall selection in the NBA draft. I mean, that's a big deal. And I don't know if we'll ever see that in our life. And it was right in your backyard, but the dirty side of recruiting played a significant role in that move. But thankfully for Clemson, you're not on the bad end of that dirty side of recruiting. 803-450-0086. The Boston College Eagles head to Tiger Town. We'll discuss what they bring to the table right after this. Stay with us. Again, Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan coming up, Tommy Bowden. He'll be moving to the second hour of the program for a while, but it's always good to catch up with Coach. Always enjoy spending time with him, getting an opportunity to talk about being the head coach at Clemson. And even more so for me, peeking behind the fence, man, peeking behind the curtain, peeling back the layers of the orange, because only a couple of guys know what it's like to be the head coach at Clemson. You know? And he was an influential part of bringing Dabo Swinney, to the program. Him and Danny Ford and Tommy West. I mean, those are the guys that know the job. Those are the guys that know the deal. 803-450-0086. Give us your thoughts, text, and more, and we'll happily oblige you with conversation on that front here on a Friday afternoon on the show that shakes the Southland. And again, a weird circumstance where this matchup against Boston College has become so crucial simply because of the fact that you are already a game in the hole in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And the Eagles come to town again, trying to really drive a stake into the heart of Clemson Tiger fans, many of which who have already said, oh, man, this season's a wash. But look, the reality is the goal of winning the ACC championship is still very much out there. Obviously, you would like to have been in a situation to still be in the catbird seat on that front at this point and still be in the mix of the college football playoff, but it is what it is right now. And I laid it out about the Penn State situation from a few years back and how maybe for Clemson it could be, it would take a pretty miraculous run. I don't deny that, but it starts tomorrow. Boston College quarterback Dennis Grizzell with a lot of experience, but again, because of the fact that Phil Dracovic, who we interviewed during the ACC kickoff, went down with an injury and is out, and that certainly slows down a Boston College offense, one would expect. But still, even last weekend, Boston College managed to survive and knock off Missouri in overtime. And in doing so, scored 41 points. And so if you've watched this Clemson Tiger team over the past or the opening weeks of the season, one of the things that you got to understand is that offensively is where these issues have really come. And if this Boston College team is able to put up 20 points, 21, score some, nobody scored a rushing touchdown on Clemson yet, but if they're able to do so and put up 21 points, first off, can Clemson cover? Can Clemson score 35, 38 points? I mean, that's part of the issue that I think we're dealing with, is that BC is catching a Clemson team that is, I think, a little bit shell-shocked from the start of this year, is a little bit shell-shocked just from the fact that they're, once things go bad offensively, it can become increasingly more difficult to get better. And that's part of the reason why I've sort of felt that, if the Tigers can finally have a game where they play well, I mean, maybe this offense just sparks like in a blink of an eye. But at this point, it's hard to look at Clemson, observe the offense, and think that all of a sudden the tight end is going to become a focal point and a big benefit. It's hard to watch this offense and think that all of a sudden you're just going to see the running game blossom because you've lost the freshman, Will Shipley, and the top guy in Will Shipley. And it's also concerning that you've got some holes on the interior of your defensive line with two of your top guys, and maybe the top two guys, with Tyler Davis out for 7 weeks or so left, whatever that ends up being, with his torn bicep, and then losing Brian Brzee, the monster in the middle, for the remainder of the season. So, I mean, there's so many things right now that Clemson is just dealing with that to imagine them walking into a game like they will this weekend and just being scintillating on offense, and if not, still maintaining the sensational play defensively minus those 2 starters, has to be a big concern. Like, in the time we've been on the air, I have rarely picked Clemson to lose a game. Rarely. But what I can tell you is that this weekend, more than any, versus Alabama in the national championships, versus LSU in the national championships, versus Ohio State in the college football playoff, this game this weekend, as much as any, is one where I think to myself, you know what? I don't know if I can pick the Tigers to win the ball game. I just don't know if I can pick them. And putting that into perspective for me is difficult. Why? Because the fact of the matter is, this Clemson team on paper should have beaten everybody on their schedule outside of Georgia from pillar to post. Clemson should have beaten these guys like Ivan Drago. Beat Apollo Creed. Spoiler alert. I mean, Clemson should have throttled these teams this season. They're that much more talented than their contemporaries outside of Georgia. So, of course, I want to recognize the fact that Clemson could win this game by big numbers. But I also have to recognize what my eyes have seen. What my eyes have seen. And what they have seen is the fact that this is not a very good team offensively. And when it comes down to making my prediction in about an hour, it's going to be as close to picking Clemson to lose to a team that I know that Clemson is actually better than I've ever had to do. Hour 2 coming up. Tommy Bowden joins us. Stay with us.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set. Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland. And without further ado, former Clemson Tiger head coach Tommy Bowden joins the program. Coach, welcome in.
Good afternoon, getting about halfway through this college football season so far.
Yeah, I can't believe how quickly it goes. It's one of those strange dynamics of this sport. You wait all the weeks, 40 some odd weeks for it to get here, and then boom, it just flies by. It's incredible.
It really is.
You know, Coach, I want to ask you this. We've looked at this Clemson Tiger team for the past few weeks, and obviously so many offensive issues. And, you know, it's almost the old phrase, if it isn't one thing, it's the other, you know, at this point. I mean, what can they do, in your opinion, to straighten this thing out with a 4-0 Boston College team coming to town?
You know, one of the things that I saw, and I actually do research when I have on the show, so I try to find some pertinent information. But I saw a statistic when I was doing some data on Clemson's offense. I think it said 41% of their plays were 3 and outs. And one of the things about third down conversions, it has so many ripple effects, not only on your offense but your team. Number one, you don't score. if you're not moving the sticks, you're not getting close to the end zone. You can't kick field goals, and then number two, you don't flip field position. If you're on your own 15 and don't get a couple of first downs and kick them back in their own territory, then it's easier to score the less you have to go. So it affects field position and the other team's opposition to opportunity to score, and then three, it fatigues your defense, which affects your whole team. So as I looked at offensively and see, gosh, and you try to, what's the one thing that they could improve to help them? I think that would be the one thing. Now, that's easier said than done. Now, why aren't you converting third downs? Is it quarterback? Is it offensive line? Is it the inability to run block? Then that's why Dabo and Tony Elliott and those offensive coaches are paid so much money. You got to figure that out.
Well, and that was one of the things that I think as consumers of the sport, we forget, right? Like, we can talk about the rhythm of the quarterback and things of that nature, but is there a rhythm that coordinators have to get into? And when you just can't, you talked about the 3 and outs. I mean, when you're struggling with that, I mean, is that more and more difficult? Like, do you feel like as a former play caller that as you kind of got grooving, you kind of got better, if that makes sense?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. I guess, getting in the continuity or getting to a rhythm from a play calling standpoint. We can run the football. That makes your passing game that much more productive and easier to call, especially in play action pass or run action pass when you have an effective running game. And then vice versa, where you can throw the football downfield. And all of a sudden you got to start pulling defenders away from the line of scrimmage to defend the forward pass. Then that helps your running game. Then you can get in a rhythm when you're executing, when you're converting your third downs, when you're continuing drives, and when your running game and your passing game are really working. When you can really get into a rhythm from a play calling standpoint, pretty much everything works. That's the way the Clemson offense has been for the last 10 years. Starting back with Todd's boy, Chad Morris, and then when Chad left, Tony and Jeff, and even recently with Tony, they've lost that. And so it makes it a lot more difficult on play calling. It puts a lot more stress on your offensive staff to find things that work that your team can do. And right now, after 4 weeks, it looks like they're really having a hard time, finding out what those answers are.
Tommy Bowden with us here on the program. He was your head coach up in Tigertown from 1999 to 2008, and of course influential in bringing instrumental, I should say, Coach, not just influential, but in bringing Dabo Swinney to the program. And for Clemson Tiger fans sitting there at 2-2, I put out the conversation piece yesterday, Coach. In 2016, Penn State started unranked. They opened the season 2-2, and then at the end of the year, they won the Big Ten championship and were in contention to get into the playoffs. They put Ohio State in, a team they had beaten previously that season. Clemson would go on to hammer that Ohio State team 31-0. But my question is, if a team like Penn State, who that season didn't start ranked, matter of fact, they didn't get ranked until sometime in late October, can make a run. I mean, is Clemson completely dead at this point, or is there still just way too much football to say for sure?
No, there's way too much football, and they're still very capable of a 10-win season if they get the offensive woes corrected. But a 10-win season, is difficult to get. But the thing that's different this year with Clemson, as far as a potential 10-win season, winning the ACC championship game and getting to the college playoffs, is that it's going to depend on other people. In the past, Clemson just takes care of business. Well, you can take care of business, Clemson, this year and not get in. So I think that's the biggest difference. Can they make a run? Can they win the ACC championship? Yes. Can they be a really good team at the end of the year? Yes. Now, can they get in the playoffs? It's going to depend on other people. That's something that's a little bit different than what Clemson's been in the past.
Well, I love hearing you talk about how difficult winning is, because when Clemson's rolling along over the past 6 seasons, pretty much crushing the majority of their competition, Dabo Swinney would always say, winning is hard. And people would sort of laugh, right? They'd be like, yeah, winning's hard. You just won by 45 points or whatever. But now, when it actually is hard, I think that the fans have to take into account what he meant is that doing what Clemson has been doing is extremely difficult. And that years like, you're not immune to a season like this. And I think fans, unfortunately, can think that they are immune to it.
Yeah, like I said, it is extremely difficult. I can remember when I first went to Clemson, we won 6 the first year, 9 the second year. Now, we were only playing 11 games back then, and there wasn't a championship game, but getting to 9 wins would be similar to I guess, the 10 and a 12 season schedule, but our 12 schedule season. But I could never get to 10, and 10's hard to get. We did eventually go to 12, and I still couldn't get to 10 going to 12. So, it's what he's done there is really, really difficult to do, and maintaining that is really difficult. So I think they're not far off track. They can't be far off track. They've got good players. They've got good coaches. They've got a really stable program. They've got a head coach that knows what he's doing. So they're not far off, but obviously they haven't solved some issues offensively.
Speaking of those issues, the RPO game has really been a part of this Clemson offense with Taj Boyd and Deshaun and even Trevor Lawrence. They don't look as willing to run that type of play to me this season with DJ Uiagalelei. And, I don't know what freelancing and changing of the plays DJ has the ability to do, if at all. But it sure feels like, Coach, that's really has not been a substantial part of this unit this year.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes the RPO successful and productive is that other aspects of your offense are also effective. One thing Clemson's always done, I've been really impressed with, is their ability to throw the ball downfield. That's a low percentage throw and catch. A lot of times it's a wasted down. It's great potential for a big play. But if you got a great defense, you're going to get the ball back, but you don't mind taking those shots. They haven't seemed to take as many shots downfield as they have in the past. And I think the RPO game, downfield throws, the running game, when all those things are working, it makes the one aspect of the RPO game a lot more productive. And when 2 or 3 of those things aren't working, then it's hard to hang your hat on one. And you mentioned the RPO. So I think the fact that other things aren't working right now is making that part of their game less productive.
Tommy Bowden with us here on a Friday afternoon, and the guy that makes those play calls is Tony Elliott, and a lot of people listening may recall that, of course, he played for you at Clemson. Everybody knows he went to Michelin and was an engineer and was certainly very good in academics at Clemson for your program. But do you recall, being around Tony at all and thinking, man, this guy one day is probably going to get into coaching and be a coach? I mean, did he have those attributes as a player on your team?
Yeah, well, 2 things stand out when you talk about Tony Elliott. Number one, of course, he walked on, but he was elected captain. He, of course, eventually earned a scholarship, but he was elected captain by his peers. Coaches, we at least when I was there, we didn't, in my tenure, we didn't pick the captain. I let the players pick the captain, and the players elected him captain. So that showed the tremendous amount of respect that he had from his teammates. And number 2, I can remember him sitting in my office talking about going into coaching. And at that particular time, he didn't. I think he went, like I say, he went into Michelin, and he chose not to go into it. But he had the desire, and it's kind of pushing on his heart a little bit back then. So I know he had an interest at an early age on going into coaching. We sat there and talked about it. And one of the things I remember mentioning, I said, you better have a wife that's behind you, because it's very challenging on a family, very challenging on a marriage. But I remember going over that with him. And but the most impressive thing was probably the fact that he was elected captain as a walk-on, which is a great honor.
Well, and part of that too, the family mentality that Dabo Swinney still has came from your time there at Clemson, and you got that obviously from your father. But I think what's so impressive, even in the midst of the struggles that Clemson's having offensively, before game, Tony Elliott's sons are pretty young, but he's out there throwing the football with them on the field, and that kind of thing is embraced. And I don't believe that's embraced at all programs across the country. I mean, how big of an impact on the morale, not only of your team, but just the coaching staff, et cetera, goes into those moments and, being allowed to have those moments with your family on game day.
Well, I'm sure you've heard the expression, happy wife, happy life. And for a wife to see,
Yeah.
For the wife to see the husband allowed to be active in the life of their children in a typical normal family life, and that's hard to get in this profession. But to have a head coach that allows that and encourages that, I'm sure makes a lot of these wives happy that their husbands can, even on game day, can participate with their children. And so Dabo's pretty smart, because that's going to make a lot of wives happy. And if that makes their wives happy, then the husband's going to be happy.
Now, let's peek a little bit behind the curtain. My buddy's father was a high school coach for many years down in Blackville at Blackville Hill High School, and was very successful in the 80s. And they always had the same meal on Friday as a family, before the games and such. I mean, do you and your family, did y'all have a tradition like that, maybe on a Friday before you left town or anything where, hey, we were doing, hot dogs and burgers or whatever? Did y'all have any family traditions, Coach?
No, not really, because you always ate with the team on Fridays and Friday nights and Saturdays. You're really not eating with your family. You're eating with the team. So no, those meals are like at Thanksgiving, and there's only one of them. It's Thanksgiving Day. That's the only one. But most coaches, and we did when I was there. I think Dabo has a family night, like Wednesday nights, where you can have the family, the children, all kind. I think we've discussed that before. But no, there's really not a Friday ritual, because as an assistant coach, you're usually on the road recruiting. You are traveling buses up to Greenville to get the plane, so there's really no time to actually sit down and have a family meal or meal with your wife, even on a Friday or a Friday night.
Any superstitions for you as a coach at the time? I mean, was there anything same pair of socks or anything you just kind of bought into?
Nah, I never really had any of those superstitions. I didn't as a college player, and really didn't just since I've been in coaching. Some coaches might feel like they need to wear the same, outfit, but we usually, our equipment guy usually switched that up from game to game. So I really never had any superstition. I think I wore a hat for a little bit, then I didn't wear a hat, and I wore sunglasses and didn't wear sunglasses. That might have been one of my problems. I should have got with them.
Should have stuck with one.
and stuck with it. Might have helped me out a little bit.
Tommy Bowden hangs out with us every Friday afternoon, the former Clemson Tiger head coach, giving us some insight and a little peek behind the curtain that, only you and Dabo Sweeney and Danny Ford and Tommy West can really tell us at this point as far as Clemson goes. And so, I mean, what are those work hours like for you during that time of the year? I mean, what time is Dabo Sweeney arriving at the office in your estimation, and what time is he going home?
I'm guessing he's got hours similar to what mine were. I was usually in a little after 6 and left anywhere from between 8 and 9, as a head coach. A lot of times as a young assistant, I was there longer than that. So you're easily looking at a 15-hour day, pretty easily as an assistant coach or even as a head coach. 7 times 15, I think that's right around 90 hours, 90 to 105, something like that. So, and that's pretty constant throughout the year. So I'm sure Dabo's hours are similar to mine as far as when he goes in and when he goes home.
And what's that first week like when you're done? Like to run at that pace? Because I'm pretty busy. I work a full-time job. Then I do the 2-hour radio show. Then I run the website. I mean, I stay pretty busy. I'm certainly not as well compensated for the job as head coaches are in college football these days. But just in terms of, the week after, I mean, when is the moment that a coach can, for lack of a better term, breathe?
There's the really first time is after signing date. There's a little bit of a dead period before you kind of get into your winter conditioning. So I would say that where you catch your breath, and instead of working 80 or 90 hour week, you might only work a 40 or 50 hour week, would be after signing date. that's where you get a chance. Most staffs, and I think Dabo, I think they go skiing. He takes the whole staff and their wives out there skiing after signing date. So, and most staffs do that. So I think the first time that a coach catches his breath from August, I'm talking about August the
Right.
1st, pretty much when you would be the first Wednesday in February, right after signing date.
Now, kind of a strange question, but even further peeking behind the curtain, and that's one of the reasons I love having you on here. So if you're the head coach, like if I'm out of work, right? If I'm sick and I can't go to work one day, and I'm not talking about during the season, but just any other day, I got to let my supervisor know. I mean, do you have to send a letter to Terry Don Phillips at the time, or an email to say, Terry, I'm out today? Like, how does that work?
Well, most of the time, I don't think I ever took a day off in 32 years. So, and I got sick. I just never got sick. So most head coaches, if they were to get sick, they'd call into the secretary and let them know if they had some appointments or some radio interviews or some people coming by the office to meet them. I would call like Beth Douglas, Dabo. Dabo would probably call Beth, say, listen, I'm not coming in today, feel a little under the weather. Yeah, he would not call the AD. He'd call
Perks.
the secretary.
That's what we call that, Coach. Perks. Perks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then a lot of stuff he could do on the phone from home, but I never missed a day, in 32
Wow.
years. So I wouldn't know what that'd be like. I doubt Dabo's has stayed home himself. You're just not allowed to get sick in coaching.
Man, unbelievable. All right, final thing for you. So speaking of those perks, for those people that want to know, like, I mean, are there a lot of free meals in that business? Like when you go out, you sitting down with, you and Linda out at dinner and find out, hey, somebody bought your meal?
Oh, yeah, that happens a good bit. And it's amazing because most of the time the head coaches, maybe the one guy in the restaurant that can afford it. But a lot of people pick it up anyway. That happens a good bit.
Wow. Unbelievable.
It didn't cost my fans a lot because I usually up there at Golden Corral up there in the Seneca, and that didn't cost about $4.95 for that buffet Golden Corral. So if somebody picked up mine, it didn't cost them much.
There you go, Coach. Listen, always great insight, not only into the program and the development, but I know our fans love hearing those stories, kind of peeking behind the curtain. Only you and Dabo and really Danny Ford and Tommy West, as I said, can really tell us the secrets to all that. So we always appreciate it. Have a great week. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Hey, thank you. Good talking to you.
Tommy Bowden here on the show that shakes the Southland. All right, we'll hit a quick break. How about that? I could buy Tommy Bowden's meals over at Golden Corral. Stay with us for more of the show that shakes the Southland. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you on a Friday afternoon. Appreciate Tommy Bowden joining the program there. Man, unique perspective. No doubt about it. I mean, honest to goodness, I love peeking behind the curtain. I love hearing stories about what Friday nights are like, what the postseason and taking families on trips and all of that, because I think to a degree, I'm not saying we all take for granted what these coaches do, et cetera, but I think because of the money they make, we certainly feel like we are entitled to grand criticism and certainly unfettered ability to release that disdain and concern, or whatever you want to call it, onto those Clemson Tiger fans. And so from that standpoint, I mean, I think that in all honesty, to be able to kind of hear what it's like for those guys is still fairly incredible. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line, 803-450-0086. Always appreciate you being a part of the program. Again, our simulation rocking and rolling along for you. And I'm thankful that each and every one of you have chosen to spend an afternoon with us, being a part of this show and being a part of Clemson Sports Talk. Obviously, tomorrow is a huge day for your Clemson Tigers. Again, taking on Boston College. And everything that this coaching staff wanted out of the season is still available, as I mentioned earlier. But you just got to go out there and win today. Zay Flowers, going to be a heck of a wide receiver for BC tomorrow against Clemson. A big kid, talented. We saw him impact the simulation a little earlier. And so, I think not for the first time per se this season for Clemson, but I do think for Clemson Tiger fans who have been in the grind with this team for so many seasons, this night game in Death Valley's got a lot of pressure. I mean, just got a huge amount of pressure built around it. And I know that there are so many people out there who would have looked at this schedule at the beginning of the year and said, it's just BC. But that just simply can't be the case anymore. I mean, tomorrow, Death Valley, you got to be rocking. I saw Dabo Swinney last night out on Bowman Field. And he was telling the students, we got to get fired up. We got to get this, that, and the other taken care of. And, I get it. I get it from Coach Swinney's standpoint. This is a team that 98% of the student body population, even though BC challenged you a year ago, would have laughed this game off the schedule. And so tomorrow night in Death Valley, Clemson's got to bring their A game, or else the hopes of the type of success that people wanted out of this season are going to be squashed. It's already at 2-2, it's already just a gut punch for so many people. But you take it one step further to 2-3, and then really buttoning up on the fact that you are not going to get into the ACC championship at that point. I mean, the level of frustration there it's going to hit bizarro levels. Bizarro world, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, no Clemson Tiger fan in their right mind felt like this was going to be the thing. And maybe the rhythm, the sync, all of that stuff, maybe it is, in all honesty, maybe it is Clemson just missed on DJ. We can worry about the offensive line and say that, man, you hadn't had any time, and we can get into all the minutia of all of those things. And I think it is fair to talk about that all. But it's not as if DJ were a miss, he'd be the first miss in the history of college football, right? Teams miss on players. Coaching staffs think they have a great player, and they don't. And is it beyond the realm of possibility that could be the case for Clemson with DJ Uyunglele? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if he goes out and just has a train wreck of a performance tomorrow, look, we talked about what could go between his ears, or how his brain and confidence would be affected if they put in Tyson Pumachan. What's worse though for DJ? To get substituted out, or to go have a lackluster performance in a clutch game against Boston College? And this does beg the question. As fragile as DJ is there more fragility? I think that might be a word. Is there more fragility for DJ in the singular fact that, guess what, guy? You aren't as talented as people thought? Or is there more fragility in, hey, guy, you're not playing well, we got to pull you out? To me, I would think that if you were a kid and you started to recognize that you weren't playing up to the standard, that you couldn't handle it at the highest level, I mean, that to me would be worse than being pulled out and giving a guy a shot and then maybe having a couple of weeks to work at it. I don't know, but maybe that is the case for DJ. I mean, maybe DJ is simply the miss here. And I hate to think that way, but I don't believe it's impossible to believe that that is the case, as a matter of fact. 803-450-0086 text line, phone line, again, be a part of the program. John, listening to the program in Archdale, North Carolina, sent us a message a little bit earlier. We'll get to that one. Had to do with my my musical taste, my musical references. We'll dive into that a little bit right after this. Stay with us. Rolling along on a Friday afternoon, getting you closer and closer to the college football weekend. Of course, it got started technically last night in the ACC, and I know many of you probably just tuned in and watched Big Trev, the Giant Killer. Man, what a performance by Trevor. He had a huge throw in that contest against the Cincinnati Bengals, only to be outdueled in the second half and coming up short. They're now 0-4. That's as many losses as Trevor had in high school and college in his first 4 weeks in the NFL. But just taking a look at last night's game, and again, I mentioned it yesterday, you had Virginia and Miami facing off, and, you know, the Hurricanes, you can't put your finger on it. Like, I was watching a part of that game, and honest to goodness, it's hard for me to believe that that program was once as storied as it was. And it was one of the most storied programs in the history of the sport. I mean, they were, you know, the run they had in the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s was just absurd under multiple coaches. I mean, that was the other thing. It just kept rolling right along. Well, at the end of the day, for the Miami Hurricanes, I think one thing it can safely be said, they might look the part, but they are certainly not the part. That was pretty quick and evident for me to watch defensively last night. Miami falls 30-28. I mean, the uniforms look like what I remember from years ago, but the play does not. And that, I think, is one of the things that has made it so frustrating for the fan base, because there is a correlation that I think we have. I don't know if it's you know how a song can take you back to a moment in time. A song can take you back to a point in your life. That's kind of the way Miami's uniforms are for me, right? Like I see them on the field. I know what I should expect. And then I watch what I watch. And it's just not good football. And it hasn't been good football for the Hurricanes in a while. And again, it's just so strange, like, to see this team, whether they're wearing their stormtrooper kind of business whites, whether they're wearing the unis they had on last night, and the catch, man, that catch by Virginia's wideout, just to put them up, 26-9 or something at that point. I can't remember what the exact score was at that point in the ball game, but 26-14 at that point. I mean, that's just, to me, if you're a Hurricane fan, that level of frustration's got to be immense, and losing to Virginia almost feels inexcusable to a degree. And yeah, I think for Miami fans, they'll tell you in a skinny minute, it feels inexcusable to them. In other games in the Atlantic Coast Conference this weekend, obviously with Clemson and Boston College being the nightcap, you got a chance to tune in and watch a lot. Tomorrow at noon, Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech will face off. Pittsburgh's favored by about 3 points in this game. The Panthers are 3-1 on the season. Also at noon, by the way, that's on the ACC network. Also at noon on ESPN2, Duke and North Carolina face off. The Tar Heels are 20-point favorites. They are 2-2, a disappointing 2-2 after being rocked by Georgia Tech last weekend, surprisingly. The 4-0 Wake Forest Demon Deacons will take on Louisville. This was on ESPN3. Like, can you believe that? Wake is 4-0. They're 7-point favorites over Louisville. And they're destined to be on ESPN3. Got to stream it tomorrow. Syracuse and Florida State will be on the ACC Network at 3:30. The Seminoles are 0-4. Syracuse right now 3-1. Good start for Dino Babers. I like Coach Babers. Really feel like he's on the hot seat this year without a productive season. I can't root for a guy more than I root for Dino Babers. So would love to see him get to 4-0, or 4-1 to start the year and knock the Seminoles down to 0-5. How about that action? Seminoles, by the way, favored in this game, -5.5. Louisiana Tech is 2-2, taking on NC State, riding high off of their upset of Clemson last weekend. The Wolfpack are 3-1, not a league game. Again, the future games for the Wolfpack are the ones you really want to tune into and watch. And then, of course, you got Boston College and Clemson at 7:30 on the ACC Network. So, again, that's a quick look at all of the games around the Atlantic Coast Conference. Here are some of the other big matchups in college football this weekend that you want to tune into. Tonight, Iowa, a top 5 team in the country, is facing off against Maryland. That's on Fox Sports 1 at 8 o'clock. And then also tonight, 13th ranked BYU taking on Utah State at 9 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. Now, tomorrow at noon, I mean, this feels like a game that should be in the evening simply because of the rankings. Number 8, Arkansas, Sam Pittman. We've talked about that team pretty extensively this week. Boy, they got some skill position players that can put it on you in a hurry, taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia also another team that has yet to give up a rushing touchdown this season. That's a noon kickoff on ESPN tomorrow. By the way, the Dogs favored by 17 points in that one. Every game seems significant for the Michigan Wolverines. They are 14th. They are 14-0. The hot seat for Coach Harbaugh is as large as maybe the Big House in terms of the stadium there at Michigan. 12 o'clock on Fox, big-time broadcast, or big-time game, I should say, for the Wolverines. Again, because that's a fan base that just wants to be competitive with Ohio State. That's a fan base that wants to get in the playoffs. And the only way you can get in the playoffs at this point, if you're Michigan, is to just keep winning. No margin of error in Ann Arbor. Cincinnati, the 7th-ranked Bearcats, will take on number 9 Notre Dame. Both of these teams undefeated. 2:30 on NBC is where you can tune in for that one. And then the other one that's fascinated me, and there are plenty of more, but this is another matchup of top 12 teams. Ole Miss ranked 12th in the country, and Alabama, the Crimson Tide, number 1 in all the land. 3:30 on CBS. Anytime I get Lane Kiffin going up against Nick Saban, yeah, put something on it, doggone it. I'll be tuning in and watching that one. All right, we'll hit a quick break. We'll come back. We'll put a big old bow on the show, plus some of your reactions. I meant to get to them, but I forgot. We'll get to them now. We'll hit a quick break. Stay with us.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment here. Final segment on a Friday afternoon. Lawton Swan with you again tomorrow night, Death Valley. Oh, man, I said it earlier. Like, this is the toughest game I've ever had to pick in the history of picking games for Clemson. And the reason that it's so tough for me to pick at this point is simple. This Clemson Tiger team has not looked in the least bit. Not in the least. Have they looked like the Clemson Tiger teams that we've seen for years? And that, for me, is the thing that is just so incredibly difficult to manage and decide what's going to take place. Like, thinking about DJ a year ago against Boston College, he had to lead a comeback. Thinking about DJ a year ago against Notre Dame, I mean, that was a tight, tough matchup. But DJ Uiagalelei has not looked like that once this year. Not a possession. Like, I can't even give you a possession. You take the best possessions that Clemson has had offensively this year with DJ. They're probably both against NC State last week. And I honestly never felt like they were really smooth. And then you got to watch TV last night and see Trevor Lawrence make a man miss, sidestep, slide step, get into the end zone. Trevor Lawrence roll in the pocket, 50 yards, and you just go, God, how good was he? And how much could Trevor have possibly been masking? How much of Clemson's issues could Trevor Lawrence have been masking? I mean, is it theoretically possible that the past few seasons have really just been a number one draft pick masking major issues on the offensive side of the ball? I mean, I feel like it's not possible or probable, maybe the right word there, because I saw this coaching staff lead Kelly Bryant and Clemson into the number one spot of the college football playoff. Like Kelly Bryant. So for me, I think it comes down to DJ. And again, I said earlier, maybe it's possible he's a miss. And I'll be honest with you. Like at this point, and he could turn it on, and he could be Clemson's first Heisman Trophy winner, and he could be spectacular. But I'm going to tell you, at this point, if I am Dabo Swinney, and I am Tony Elliott, I am pulling DJ Uiagalelei after the second series if we go 3 and out, if we punt. I'm pulling him, and I'm putting in Tyson Pumachan. And hear me on this. It's not as if Tyson Pumachan was some sort of chop liver quarterback. He was a 4-star kid. He's an athletic kid willing to run the ball. Is he as good throwing the football as DJ? No, I don't think so. I think he is Zarek Cooper to Hunter Johnson in terms of throwing the football. If you compare those two guys when they were at Clemson. I mean, I think there is a drop-off when it comes down to his arm talent versus DJ. But I think you have to give Pumachan an opportunity. And I think you have to just say, look, DJ, here's how it's going to go. You either get this offense moving today, or we will see if Tyson can. Because you can't afford not to. 6 inches between his ears, you can't worry about. Dabo Swinney and this Clemson Tiger team got to worry about winning this game. And giving Pumachan one opportunity, in my opinion, at this point, is not going to make or break it. I mean, I mentioned DJ could be fragile at this point, and that could be a big deal. But, dude, you as Clemson, now turning my attention to Clemson, you've got to do whatever you've got to do to win this ball game. And if that means playing Tyson Pumachan, and maybe Pumachan sparks something, good. If that means you play Tyson Pumachan and he doesn't spark something except for lighting a fire in DJ's rear end, good. Like, I can't see, if you're on this coaching staff, why you wouldn't just give DJ the heads up. Say, hey, man, look, if you have a couple of bad series, we're going to pull you out. We're going to let you kind of see things from the sidelines, reevaluate, like set him up to know that you're going to take him out of the game if you have to. Don't make it a blindside. Just let him know. Say, look, DJ, man, if you're struggling, dude, we're going to go to Tyson for a series. We're going to give you a chance to decompress, watch it from the sidelines. And if Tyson leads a drive and scores a touchdown, a whoopity-doo. You know what that means? It means you might be winning the game 7-0. Do you know what I mean? If DJ has another 3 and out, it means, yeah, you're right. It means that the game's still tied. Maybe you're trailing. Look, I want DJ to be successful. I want DJ to be the next big thing. I want DJ to be everything that you want him to be. But right now, in my estimation, if you are the Clemson Tigers, you can't risk it. So with all that being said, with all that on the table, I'm going to pick Clemson to win this game, but folks, it is barely. I don't have a ton of confidence in this selection. I would love to see Clemson put up 40 points. I'd love to see the offense be what we think it can be, but I'm going short and sweet. Clemson survives Boston College this weekend. Tigers win it 24-21. Hopefully it's a big difference. Hopefully I'm way off, but 24-21 Tigers. We got to get out of here. We'll see y'all next week. Until then, as always, y'all take care now and go Tigers.